Or has anyone heard about?
Welcome to the revolution. We will not comply with the institutions. Take illusion, no, we won't be televised. Welcome to the revolution. The revolution won't be televised. Government been telling lies. If you're not with us, you better step aside. Witnessing a genocide. Everything is centralized. The food that we consume and they spraying it out with pesticides. Easily identify the sheep and the snake, the real and the fake, giving us a reason to pray. I'ma make my own choices. A voice for the voiceless. They trying to destroy us, avoiding the poison. It's all pointless if you don't have a purpose. If you read the verses, you'll know who we versing. Government can tell you what your worth is. Look deeper than the surface. They don't even want you researching or asking questions. We all being tested. They comply, that's the message. Want you depressed on prescriptions that mess with your head, got you stressing, suppressing expression. We will not comply with the institutions. Sick illusion, no, it won't be televised. Welcome to the revolution. We will not comply with the institutions. Take illusion, no, it won't be televised. Welcome to the revolution. Keep the money, I would rather have my soul. They want power and control. This ain't number one goal. All my friends turn to foes. Look how easily they fold. Even Nazis say they were doing what they told. Walking down this road all alone in the cold, but my soul never sold. I'm exposing the clothes. God has chosen to roll all of those who oppose. Want me hopeless and broke like I'm Noah, I'm boats. I'm just trying to tell them all about the flood. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my blood. Man, I came up out of mud. Only God is my judge. I don't listen to these politicians. They the real thugs. Won't comply with the lies. They disguise it as science. They want you compliant. The media's biased. These corporate giants are capitalizing on us by dividing. But I'll keep on fighting. We will not comply with the institutions. Take illusion, no, it won't be televised. Welcome to the revolution. They're trying to dumb us down. Don't want us to make a sound. We gotta get out of now, 'cause it's a revolution. We will not comply with the institutions.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. Today is Tuesday, November 29th, so we're almost at the end of November 2022. We're focused on a ripple effect. It is 5:30 Mountain Time, and there's some new things that we're going to discuss today. You're already seeing it, but you may not realize it. Hint, hint. There are folks that are helping, from Elle to Terrence to Wally. We're super appreciative of you taking the time, and we're grateful for those that have logged on. There's Clear One, where you can ask live questions. This is also streaming on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. There are questions that can be asked on those channels, so feel free. This is the first time we'll actually go ahead and take questions that are live from any of those different channels from a chat standpoint. So yeah, thank you for those that are inviting others to it. Appreciate your questions and appreciate your prayers. It's an interesting time to be alive. Grateful to be alive. I don't know that there's a better time. It's just exciting. But on the flip side of it, it's pretty bold. I don't know about you, but this last week, there's some interesting news topics. But we're going to start out with generally going over the technology. I'll do the intro real quick, and then we'll jump to questions after the technology. Thank you for being here, especially those that are just here with smart questions every single week, week over week, and especially for being on time. There is no particular legal minder other than this is a private membership association. The things we'll talk about may be forward-looking topics. We're reviewing basically connecting a phone with decentralized storage. That phone actually uses decentralized encryption keys, also known as a master private key, also known as crypto or cryptography or blockchain. but ultimately this is a ledgerless technology that is really, it's very similar to what blockchain originated as, but people can actually use it in our normal everyday course of life. The model is simple. You connect a phone that is from Clear Cellular and many other organizations, such as Freedom Phone, such as the Armor Phone, and many other phones that'll basically be using this decentralized technology that will then connect into decentralized storage and validators, which we talk a lot about. These are the primary areas that we want to focus. But if you notice back here, there's a lot of topics, there's a lot of tech. And actually, there's a page I want to bring up. I'm going to go to clearos.com. If you notice, there's no bookmarks here. We'll go through that in a second. So I'm actually using a clear web browser for your desktop. For those of you that are not seeing it, we're also streaming on multiple channels, and some of the broken things within Chrome that didn't even do this type of stuff, we're able to get done. I'm going to jump into here. I'm going to go into competition. I think this is a page that's really not focused on. And it's really, what is the Clear companies doing and why are they doing it? And ultimately, it is for this new digital world. Today, you'll see the Clear companies as the first service providers, but there's a version 2 of this website that will be going live. Literally, we work on it every day. We'll show you some of those pieces, but this will actually go away. So for those of you that have been working a lot with the different Clear companies, thank you for your dedication, for your commitment. But there's going to be a lot of other service providers that are coming into this ecosystem. For those of you that don't know some of the history from some of the leadership, for instance, Wally's on this call, myself, some of the history, we go into the managed service provider industry. So we literally help create what is called the MSP industry, which is $256 billion industry. And we helped start that in 2000, grew it to being number 1 in the world by 2009. But we saw that centralization was the wrong way to actually do it. Managed service providers use a centralization model to deliver IT services. We quantified it for hardware, software services for a predictable monthly fee for the server, network, gateway, PC, and printer world. We eventually sold that PC business off to Hewlett Packard. And the consumer side of it has tons of employees here in Utah. Last count was 750 as of 2 years ago. But make a long story short, we saw that centralization from a business standpoint was the wrong way for humanity, especially for just running a simple business. But when we started looking at the technology around really what we used to have, I don't want to get too geeky on you, but financial systems that had to be up, they ran a system from Tandem, which was basically a motherboard, CPU, and disk that actually ran in parallel at the same time. That's why they call it Tandem. And if something went down, let's say power was cut to one of the systems, the other one would kick in. Then they started using hard drives and RAID sets, RAID 0, 1, 10, that would basically load balance that data so that if you had power outages or same types of issues, it would basically transition over to that. Then they went to decentralized or centralized systems that were all in data centers. So you would move all of your compute from a branch or from an office or from a home to a centralized system, standardizing file print, messaging, all the different features and functions, but ultimately databases. And then they would have to figure out, how do these databases actually stay up? Make a really long story short, what the value of decentralized systems are is you can have multiple devices in multiple locations that basically do a similar type service, but for humanity. So in other words, you had banks that went offline, you had stock markets that went offline. They would shut down trading, they would shut down transactions, and literally, they still do it today. They still, I mean, there was the Federal Wire actually went down for 14 hours earlier this year. People don't understand that is the ability to actually send financial transactions. And the value, one of the biggest use cases for blockchain technologies is for people to actually use technology in such a way where systems that can stay up 24/7, they don't go down. There is no holiday, there is no after hours, there is no, by the way, we used to think about, we didn't think about time zones. I mean, just on this call alone, we probably have, I don't know, all the way around the world from a time zone standpoint. And I'm appreciative of a lot of those folks, especially last week. I don't know if you're familiar, but We had a lot of folks from Israel. We did a special time for this ripple effect. And I'm just amazed at how many people from around the world just come out to really understand this tech. Brad, it's good to see you. I miss you and love you, buddy. So, make a long story short, technology enables transactions and systems to stay up in real time. I personally believe that that is what differentiates our dispensation in time from what's happened in prior wartime. World War II, World War I, they didn't have technology. Look at what's going on with Ukraine and Russia today. The reason that you're seeing a country that is small able to stand up, it's not just that they got a ton of support. I'm not taking sides, by the way. That's a whole nother topic. And weapons, but it's really the ability to get intelligence and to communicate. Who's doing what, where, how, when, why, who's where, how do we get these vehicles, these weapons, how do we move it around, how do we assemble? And when you look at how wars are fought and won, communication is the number one reason. There's many others around force, capabilities, strategic. I mean, they blew up a Russian battleship, one of the strongest Russian battleships Russia's ever made, with two missiles. They weren't nuclear. They were just literally two missiles, took them out. How do they get them there? How does it triangulate? This is all technology based. So technology is just not facilitating how do we say, hey, who's on third base or who's over there, or how do you actually triangulate to get a coordinates, or how do you actually deliver it? It's all together. And so I would argue that is World War III really going to be fought with those types of logistics? Because obviously you can see how people are just standing up to it. I personally believe that World War III is actually being fought with needles and media. And I think that one of the things that's happened this last week is such a huge advancement, and there will be ripple effects from it around free speech. And I don't know if you're familiar with what's been going on, but every day this week I've been pinged by different individuals that are seeing possible shutdown. So I'm gonna kind of jump back over to this model. So if we're talking about really two different ecosystems around an operating system for a phone and an operating system for servers, there's also marketplaces that go with those. So I'm going to go to clearos.app, and I'm going to look at basically a marketplace that is for decentralized apps and centralized apps, but in a new type of marketplace. Okay, so this directly competes with, I'm going to pull up a statistic here for you. It's a crazy statistic, not a good statistic, but I think it's one that we got to face a reality for today. Boy, is this way down here? So the adoption of clear phones is literally way less than 1%. But that's not surprising. But for what most folks don't understand is Android, any Android, at least from version 5 all the way up to 11, can now run ClearOS, the core encryption models of Clear Life, or what we call digital life. And I'm going to show you how to find that right now. So you don't have to have a Clear phone to be able to make this work. So if we come in here and we type digital life, we're going to pull up an APK file that can be downloaded without a user authenticating off of it. This can actually be installed on any Android-based system in the world, and you automatically go and get your encryption key. We should probably have a photo of an encryption key in here. But basically, you can then tie into other applications that are Clear-based applications around identity, around other apps, around support, around community, names, which is now called contacts, around payments, around web browsing, which, by the way, this web browser on the phone will actually connect into this web browser on the device. So I don't know if you can see here, but this is actually Clear Web as a browser that I'm actually using to show you all of this tech. So if you're not understanding what I'm saying, I'm just going to pull up in a new tab so this doesn't confuse you. This that we're looking at is a web browser, okay? And inside of this web browser, there's actually alerts that you can see that go off, and you can actually get certain types of rewards that pull down out of this. So this web browser here is literally, it's an open source web browser built off of the Brave-based technology. So the browsers, the search engines, the ability, these are all open source technologies. If you remember, and I don't know that I've got it in this particular slide deck. I'm going to pull it up for you though. So we talk about a couple things being a concern. We talk about secret combinations. We talk about governments taking over with different industries, whether it's the financial industry, the media industry, the insurance industry, the health, the pharma. They've all basically orchestrated and taken over governments, both private and public ecosystems built into them. Decentralization is the way to combat this. And the way to actually get the technology to compete is through open source. So when I pull up this model here, we talk about open source versus closed source and decentralization versus centralization. And really what we're doing is comparing how different intelligently organized systems from Clear and other companies like it that primarily focus on decentralization can actually compete with some of the most advanced and mature systems out there. Apple is one of them. They build some of the best access devices in the world. I would argue, show me any kind of real innovation since Mr. Jobs has passed away. But the point is they have massive, massive adoption. And in the US, it's only growing. Rest of the world, it's not as strong. But that's not the point around market adoption. The point is you can take open source technology. For instance, we just talked about Clear Web. We just talked about, DuckDuckGo is actually an open search engine. And in the future, we'll actually see us doing unique things by enabling the individual to actually do their own search. Just like DuckDuckGo looks at indexing the web and data just like Google does, but they don't actually monetize the searches. You can do the same thing, but you can do it on your own personal data. Very important, massive, massive opportunity for humanity when people start understanding this. But this is against Google. This is against Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, IBM. So many folks don't even realize some of the depths that we've spent over the years to build systems that combat a lot of these centralized systems. And then this basically adds up number of employees, revenue, market cap. And you know what our biggest goal is? Our biggest goal is to actually have none of it. We don't care about market cap. We don't care about revenues. We don't care about EBITDA. We don't care about growing a ton of heads. As a matter of fact, we believe that the less heads, the less individuals, the less that we can have from a team standpoint, the better off humanity is. Usually you get better service when you've got smaller organizations that have a very tight focus around some type of service that they have a competitive advantage over. What I mean by competitive advantage is they're doing it better than any other organization in the world. That's what you want to work with. And when we talk about this digital world, what you're going to see, and I can probably start pulling up some of them. Let me see if I can just grab some real fast. I'm just going to go through some of the websites. These are not live. We're still waiting on, let's see, I'm not going to do that one. We're still waiting on the voting app for a lot of this because we've got to have that voting app. But here you can kind of, let's see, I'll start over here. No. Oh, that's some of the back end stuff that we'll talk about later. Yeah, go ahead, Steve. If you had a question, buddy, go ahead. basically all of these tabs up top, as well as all of these, is all the new digital world website that we've been waiting on. There is an absolute ton of work, a ton of simplicity, a ton of messaging. Things will even cut out. The dispute resolution system is massive. So, like, when you have a dispute on something, a lot of the ways that companies are actually going to be suffocated with this new financial system is the merchant system, and the banking system will literally just start shutting down the small to medium businesses and allow not only the big businesses to thrive, but it basically allows them to control the flow of cash, which is a whole nother topic, but it's very painful, and it will hit people worldwide. And this does not know borders. It basically, for instance, where's Visa accepted? Where's MasterCard accepted? Discover, American Express, those merchant providers behind it, they have a lot to lose with decentralization getting out there. And we're already seeing some of the ramifications of it. This is a summary page that goes through a lot of the different tech. So this talks about businesses and organizations, associations, trusts. This talks about assets. People can create their own assets. The assets, the individual and the organization can have their own reputation. Forensics can automatically be dynamic, built into the system. Some of the things we have to vote on is, how do we want to do currency systems? Should we even be touching currency systems? The technology can do it. Why? Because it's built on the technology that will be the new financial system for humanity. It's built off of Ripple. This whole digital world, the ability to actually, and here I'll pull it up real fast. The ability to actually come in and build transactions or sign transactions or create transactions, developers need this type of an infrastructure to be able to build from. The users, they don't need to see this or mess with this. But this, from a development standpoint, is imperative. SDKs, code, resources, documentation, it's all here to be able to allow the individual and the ecosystems to be able to build not literally their own assets. And then from their own assets, their own reputations. And from their reputations, that's where the dispute management stuff comes in. You can even do anonymous disputes. You can do it based upon a public address that you send something to. Your identity, literally so that we have folks from Australia that are here. They're starting to see identity. I even have it up. I just don't have it right in front of me. They're starting to see identity from a decentralized standpoint starting to rear its head in Australia. And they're literally saying it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. You'll be able to verify that you're over an age or that you live in a certain jurisdiction without giving them your age or your date of birth or your address. But you're actually centralizing all this stuff together. You're literally rolling right into their hands for them to be able to control it. And it's not just, is this really possible? It's like, this is real. Just this last week, Brazil, China, and many other ecosystems that support Brazil and China are having quasi unrest. I wouldn't even, I don't even think people can believe that they can actually stand up to this. What do? They just go march in the streets and see where it ends up. And, it's just, it's futile on many levels. But the ability for a decentralized ecosystem to become very real and very real overnight. Like today, we talk about these phones. Most of y'all have these phones or different versions of these phones. But imagine if what you see and the questions you're asking and the realization and connecting the dots around what's playing out in front of us about a pandemic that's really not about a virus, it's about financial reset and digital control. And then when we say, well, how's that have to do with a future pandemic and lockdowns and central currencies that have programmable money that also then will tie to a carbon-based measurement based upon good company, bad company, good individual, bad individual, and then literally just strip rights away. But what's happened along the way is you will have centralized systems and secret combinations that are running those centralized systems that can control humanity. You know, some of the most intelligent people and people that put themselves out there, and you can say it's good or for bad, but I really believe, and well, I shouldn't even make that comment. I got to remember all the different channels that I'm streaming on today. So that's another thing. I mean, there's folks. It's crazy. There's 3 different companies that have started lawsuits directly against Apple and Google, specifically for censorship. For Google, it was censorship off of YouTube. But a lot of these folks that are finally coming out and saying the types of things that we've been talking about and living for a long time, it's literally tied. It's tied to their voices, and that's why what you're seeing with Twitter starting to talk about free speech and unlocking um, accounts that have been locked up, you're starting to see Apple and Google both say, "We may pull you from our marketplaces. You're doing things that are not in alignment with what the agenda is." And everybody can have their own perception of what Mr. Musk's agenda is. Um, it's not my place to say positive or negative, but I will say that it's nice to see people actually doing something. It's nice to see action. Um, all I would say is, by their fruit ye shall know them. So look at the activities, look at the efforts, look at the results. So this basically, again, this is kind of an overview of one particular page. Um, different assets, different types of assets, tokens, rewards, coins. Um, it's not just digital life, but Clear Life will also work. Taxation, wallets. So, and there's a lot more to it. There's a ton more to it. We started touching on forensics and health, identity. What's this particular one? Land management, asset ownership. Um, so these are all things that are currently in the maturing process. The goal is to have this stuff live by the end of this year, and we're still in the process of waiting for some of the voting stuff. We have right now 13 different offices around the world that do different things, or I should say teams around the world that do different things, from support to security to different types of server apps down to mobile apps. Um, some are in the services business primarily. Some are in the image business or the front end, like Italy. Some are in the virtualization side of it, like Greece. These different teams are basically lighting up ecosystems that multiple folks can leverage and build from. And these teams should be able to be independent with their own targets or objectives that they're focused on. So, we're at 6:06 right now. Is there any particular questions that folks have? Whether, regarding anything that you want to discuss, basically, if there's support, the support people, we went over who they are, but um,
Yes, I have a question, Michael,
go ahead.
please.
Go ahead.
So thank you very much for getting me sorted with customer support.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at all of this, and I just love what you're doing. I want to understand it. I want to learn, but an hour with you every Tuesday just does not cut it for me. How can we get to, like, I want this in my bones. I want to be able to share it. I think we're headed for disaster if we don't wake up, and it's going to have to be more than the Clear community to wake up. So how can I learn about this? I'll speak for myself. How can I learn about all these amazing things you're bringing to us, that you're creating for us, and you know, to the point where I really understand it and it becomes a part of me.
You know, you're in the right place by just showing up and doing what you're doing. You're also in the right place by using the technology because it's going to help you to ask the questions. Usually in life, at least this is what I found in my young years, asking the question is half of the calculation. It's half of the learning process. And so, you know, just by you asking that question, I would say you're already halfway there. The best resources are these videos. And these
Okay.
videos can all be downloaded on your own. These videos are not tied to a lot of the centralized systems, so to speak, and there'll be more. There'll be a lot more. For instance, I want to say, see if I can find it.
So where are they? They're in the digital world?
No, that's actually in the Clear ecosystem. There's going to be a lot of videos. For instance, this is a big thing to jump on. And I wonder if there's a link here. There is an event that we have once a year, which is like a summit, you know, face to face. There are different videos that come with those events per se. I'm going to try and find, I'm looking for media. No.
Oh, remind me too, because you spoke to me about getting on a council and I tried, and I have a question about that.
So really the right thing to do is to leverage as much of the Clear ecosystems as you currently have, because these are all focused on decentralization. These videos literally, and this is like Q&A, interviews, you know, just tons of, there's a lot of content that's right here. We do our best to try and organize it. There's also a ton of content on ClearUnited. So
ClearUnited and clear.co.
Yep. And what I'm going to do is on ClearUnited, you actually have to log in to grab the data and you go to the marketing area.
Okay.
So this goes through, you know, monthly meetings, weekly meetings, different topics, different Q&A. This is all pure Q&A stuff here. These are all getting started stuff. So some of the things that you're going through where you've got a new phone and you're, what's the difference? How's it better? How's it worse? And how do I do different things? These are videos of different summits that are already in this stuff is huge. There's content inside of these, like this guy right here. This is like so ahead of its time. Like this particular thing right here, just massively ahead of its time. Just to go through and watch some of these. As a matter of fact, I wonder if I can. So I'll show you. I'll show you an example. What I would do is grab. I'm going to pop this URL here. I'm going to see if I can also pop it on the other channels. So this hits all the different ecosystems there. So that's one.
Okay.
Then the other videos is here.
The videos, okay.
So those two video sections, and then just, I don't know about you, but I live by these little books here. So, you know, I actually have piles of them. And when I have questions or I have things I need to follow up on or tasks or concepts, like for instance, these are some interfaces that just popped this last week. That's particularly around reputation or decentralized reputation or identity management. There's tons. For me, it's all about how do I actually organize the thoughts and get the data down. So having a workbook that helps me thumb through a lot of this digital stuff, or at least know where do I pick up, where did I leave off, what's next, you know, those types of things are really valuable there. So, but everybody has their own habits. I particularly, and my wife, even this last week, she says, you know what? Well, I won't even say what she said there, but she basically said, in certain areas, your mind was quickened. That's a positive thing. But on the other hand, it's like, you don't learn like everybody else does. You don't, you know, school teaches you to learn a certain way, to test a certain way, to focus a certain way. And I tell all my kids, I'm just happy if you get through school and you can do two things. You can actually multitask, but at the same time, you can stay focused.
And think for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just, because it's like there's a lot of noise out there in the world, And it's natural for you to be able to have being pulled in lots of different directions. But if you can actually focus thoughts and structure and alignment to be able to have your own guidance, your own understanding, your own ability to discern right from wrong. And that's another thing. It's like, what
That's
is
rare these
wrong?
days.
Yeah, well, the definition of wrong, I think, is what's rare these days. What is wrong? I think we're attacking families, we're attacking morals, we're attacking individuals, we're attacking
Everything,
society.
Michael. There isn't one system that doesn't need to be revamped. I'm blown away every time I turn around. There's nothing. I can't trust anything anymore. I need to just go within and see what's right and use my discernment. And it's mind blowing. It's just mind blowing.
Going within and using your discernment, those two guidances, I can't tell you how profound and imperative they are.
That's what I
Everyone on
go
this.
by.
Say again.
That's what I go by. Those are my tools.
And you know what? Those are gifts. I don't know if you have kids. I would assume you do.
Oh, we tried, but no, we were never
No.
blessed. I have
There-
dogs instead.
There is an amazing, and I hope this comment doesn't hurt you. There is an amazing connection, natural connection between a mother and a child.
That's the only regret that I have. And I know I was a mother in another life, but in this lifetime, that's the only thing I wish I could have experienced. You're dead on.
But I would argue you still have it. You are a woman, a womb you create. You still have it. And I would argue that there's certain folks out there, like I bump into a lot of people that are not just focused on themselves. They're not just focused on their immediate family. They really care about humanity in general. Like was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday morning. I had a call with some folks from Israel. And this is a group of probably 300 or 400 vibrationally connected people that I've not connected up with at that level, in that quantity, without being connected to some other type of organized something or other. But they care about humanity so much. And I would argue that's you. And maybe you don't recognize that today, but I really believe that one of the reasons that you're so drawn to this is because you really care about what's going on out there. You don't want to get consumed by it, but you also want to be a part of the solution.
I want to make a difference.
Mhm.
I want to make a difference. I want to. Yeah.
And there's many like you, just like me. That's the exact, I feel like I've had my chapter of being a father. I was married way young, over 25 years already. Most of the kids are to the point where they don't even need guidance anymore. As a matter of fact, I think they could all fly the coop and be just fine. But it doesn't stop there. You always have to be there. But at the same time, we have a day, we have a week, we have vitality. And it's, the day that we get run down and tired and don't believe that we're needed, or time, exactly what you're talking about. You want to make a difference with what you do with your time. And there's so many folks that are really that think that same way. And so think about it. All we're really talking about is, instead of picking Apple or Google, you pick a new platform and you learn the platform, and you're asking the questions, well, what do I do on this new platform? Well, I guess the first thing is exactly what we always say right here at the beginning of every meeting, what Mr. Covey always said. And some of you may not know who Mr. Stephen R. Covey is, but he's
amazing. Yeah.
His house is probably 5 minutes this way. He's no longer alive, but his wife and kids and his family home's right here. But he really made a difference for me individually when I was younger. And this particular thing, it's kind of like that question too, you got to ask the right question to and then figure out, have the deductive reasoning to get out to the other side. So seek to understand, then be understood.
Right.
And it's like, most of us are trying to just sift through all the noise and the garbage to try and figure out what truth is, let alone understand it. And I'm convinced that the more that we can close down the noise and do exactly what you just said, Daniela, how can we actually discern, know truth, know right, and then be able to make a difference for the future generations, knowing, hey, when most of us on this call were born, these simple liberties and freedoms and sovereignty, some of it was already jacked and taken when we were born, but a good chunk of it, like, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But we can see it within the next quarter, within the next year, just absolute, your privacy gone. What you thought, what we even thought today is our privacy, just gone. So there's just a lot there. So I hope I've answered your question. There's another part of it that you started asking. What was the second part?
Well, the thing about the council, you had mentioned to me, unless I misunderstood, you had mentioned to me, you had suggested that I get on a council, and I started looking at it, but it asked for the name of my company, and
Yeah, so
I don't have.
just if you've got a phone, there'll actually be the opportunity where you can plug in your QR code. You just scan it and automatically logs you in. You're already signed up. You'll be able to select which one you want to join. So don't even worry about that.
Okay.
So basically, these are the current councils, and the councils, all of them together can kind of create new councils, or they can remove councils. So if there's a council that's there, by the way, let's say that as we're building out these new pages, let's say I'm just going to throw a couple of them up. So under law, that would go under a governance type thing. Under life, that would probably go under technology. If we looked at forensics, same thing under security. If we looked at the declaration, that's under the governance side of it. Contacts, that's probably, I would probably say technology. Assets, that probably under finance. Domains as technology. Events or news, this is events, that's probably under communications. And here's actually the new councils that are going to be coming up. So, you'll see certain folks that are already in them. So you can register for a particular council.
Yeah, like the health council, that was the one I was.
Yeah, so health would be perfect. So and by the way, this is not a production ecosystem. I'll jump over to this one. So this is actually the production one here. So if you just register, if you don't want to fill this stuff out, there'll be a little QR code in the new site. It's already there. The new site's just not live, where you basically will be able to scan it. It'll automatically log you in. And you know what's cool? And I hate to even make this commitment because I've never seen it work, but we're so close. So imagine getting a ClearPhone, going to this site, and then here, I'll show you how, for those that have not seen it, you just come up here and you go and scan. So I'm just going to pull up a ClearPhone. I'm going to pull up, these are all decentralized apps. I'm going to click on Clear Life. I'm going to scan a QR code. Here it's going to, let's see here. So it's automatically logged me in. So there's no username, no password. I'm in a brand new browser. So this is actually the first time I've logged in inside of this browser. By the way, this is a clear web browser for those of you that came late. So
can I use that on a Mac?
Yeah, that's exactly what this is on. Yep. So you don't use Chrome. You walk away from these centralized systems.
I use Brave.
Yeah. So this is basically a rebuild of Brave, but it's particularly tied to a lot of the reward systems, the update systems that are built into this ClearID. But you can still use an extension inside of Chrome and still do the same things with ClearID. But what I wanted to show you is, imagine the ability, and I don't know, I have it over here, but imagine if you could actually log in to the digital world just like I did, and you automatically get all your mail, all your calendar, all your contacts, all your files, all your spreadsheets, and literally you didn't even have to create an email account. You didn't have to verify anything. You didn't have to set up a password. You just automatically have it.
But how is that possible? Like if I have a Gmail account, so this would be a completely different email
It's a
account?
totally different account. So
Oh, I would love that.
in this particular one, like for instance, I can pull in all my old stuff, right? So let's say that
Right.
I wanted to pull in, let's say I wanted to pull in, Clear Center, Clear Cellular, different things that I work on. I can pull in those other accounts. But if you notice, this is an ecosystem that literally is unique. So if, like, for instance, I'm just opening up certain things, you can kind of see it. But think about if you didn't even create.
Oh my God, be attached to your QR code.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. You got it.
Oh
The
my
lights
goodness,
the light just
Michael.
went on for you. Yep, that's exactly
Oh,
right.
for goodness sake.
That's exactly right. So just like you log in and you can manage an organization, or you can create a digital asset, or you can look at different things associated with it, reputations, finances, different currencies. And the goal is to actually have it so you can just drag and drop certain things. So you can literally say, I want to buy this type of an asset with this, drag and drop. It's done. It's
Oh,
automated.
for goodness sake. Are you kidding me?
That's where this is going.
But okay, so if somebody's sending me an email, how would they know where to send, how would they know where to email me?
So today it's the same thing you already have, is you just get an email address and you associate that email address with who you are, and then you communicate with them, right?
Correct.
So there's a two different types of mail systems in this future. One that is centralized, like this is still a centralized mail.
Like Gmail and all that.
Yep.
Right.
All Proton Mail, Gmail, Outlook, it's all centralized mail. And you could say, hey, I'm running an Outlook, an Exchange server, and I'm actually got my own PST and OST files. I'm managing them. But the point that I'm driving at is this, it's all still centralized mail. Okay.
Right. Yes, of course.
But imagine if this were actually able to tie to other systems. For instance, have you ever used like Craigslist?
Yes.
So do you notice how you can communicate with people without disclosing your identity and you don't even log into a system? It's the same type of thing, but you're not actually, you're actually tying to derived keys that can cryptographically, so mathematically, through physics, prove who you are.
Yes, I understand that because I've been in the crypto world for a couple of years now. But my question is, if my neighbor wants to send me an email, how would he have my email address? How would that email reach me?
So just like you've just recently set up a phone, and I don't know
Yes.
if it's an X series that doesn't have Google or if it comes with Google, but
No,
there's
I don't have Google. No.
okay, so there's basic things that you need to do. You need to set up your contacts, you need to set up your
Right.
calendar, you need to set up
Right.
your mail. And usually mail has certain things. You've got IMAPs that are inbound, outbound,
Right.
username, passwords, URLs, and sometimes ports. So you basically have to do certain things to get it configured. And the goal is to go from the centralized systems. You grab your contacts, calendar, mail, files, docs, photos, you move it into this new ecosystem. And the ecosystem can be writing. You've actually just went from one side all the way to the other. But the goal is to say, hey, we know that these centralized systems, they've already got decades worth of data on us.
Yes.
Mapping data, email data, and you don't want to just flush all that data. Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, whether it's Apple, you want to be able to transition from the current centralized systems to the future of decentralized systems with you owning it in the middle. So you've taken a step where you've basically said, you know what, I'm not doing Google. I'm going to go all the way to a whole nother system without Google. So you've got to move your calendar, your contacts, your photos, your text, your everything
Right.
over. And
Right.
so there's a process to be able to do that. But once you do it the first time, why would you ever need, and some people are like, you know what, for instance, I'm going to see if I can find, I'm actually going to pull open app.clear.one. So this is, for those of you that are not running Clear One, by the way, for those that are streaming online, Clear One is what we use. We walked away from Zoom earlier this year. This is an interface for an organization behind it, and this is an interface for me as an individual. So my different calendar events, for instance, if I wanted to see these different meetings that I've had, who have I had them with, when did I have them, this particular one actually had a recording, I can literally go and manage my own. So think about Zoom, but it's not owned, controlled, profiled, and scripted by a Chinese organization. I'm not saying China's bad by any means, by the way. I love the Chinese people are some of the best people on the face of this earth. But who controls them is a very different conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that people are bad, because I believe that we all have goodness in us, all of us. But again, the question is, what's right from wrong, or good versus evil? Is it really evil, or is it just missing some of the good? And I think that's one of the biggest delineations in our time frame right now, when the lines are just massively distorted around what is right. You know, I have a dear friend, wonderful person, who came and said something I don't even understand. This individual's walked into the office for, it was 18, 19 years as a man, and said that he wanted to walk into the office as a woman. Will you support me with that, Mike? It's like, I don't even know how to answer that. I don't even know how to respond to that. But I can tell you that I love you for who you are. And if that's your choice, so be it. And as I watch this individual kind of take this new form, and I watch the life and the vitality, and I would say beforehand, this individual wasn't alive to the same level. And even today, it was, I thought to myself, some of the tasks that were focused on, it's like, wow, this is a methodical man, because I've known that I've worked with him for forever, like over 20 years now. A methodical man with an analytical mind, but I'm asking him to do something that a her would do naturally. The talents naturally for a female is actually stronger than what this individual is. And so the point is I saw this individual blossom into doing things that I would never think or see. At least, like, when we talk about one of the most confusing topics of this time frame, I don't think it's about viruses. I don't think it's about weather. I think it's about genders.
Yes.
Because it's just totally like, well, why is this such a topic? And then
because
you start to understand.
They're preparing us. They're desensitizing us. Mm-hmm. They're preparing us to become AI.
Right.
That's what they're trying to do, in my opinion.
Well, I guess the point that I'm driving at is, where's the line for good versus evil? And I would argue, I've looked for evil in this person and I don't see it. I see a wonderful person trying to make it through every day, trying to have joy and happiness, which are gifts that we've all been given here on this earth. Yeah. And trying to just see a way. And, we don't know what people have gone through. We don't know the pain. We don't know the sorrow. We don't know
the suffering. Yep.
We just don't understand. And it's not fair for us to judge or to condone or to do anything like that. That is not our place. As a matter of fact, I think we find a lot of peace in just loving.
I was just going to say, our place is to love. That's all we need to do. We don't need to do anything else. Nothing.
Someone raised their hand. Simon.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. I know this topic is a crazy one, but I think looks like Bob. Simon, Bob.
Michael, I logged into the digital world and I'm looking at my profile. So I see a decentralized email address. Is that tied to your DIGs?
It's a derived key from a DID. So it is a DID, a decentralized ID. It's a derived key from your private master key. So that private master key is the 12 words you got when you got either Digital Life or Clear Life or a Clear Phone. And when you sync that with your fingerprint, it allows you to create derived keys with you authenticating it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. You're probably not going to be able to do much with it right now, but this interface that I was just showing you, this will actually automatically create accounts for you and link them together.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
What part of the world are you in, if you don't mind me asking?
South Jersey.
Okay, awesome. Sure is good to have you every week. like clockwork. You're just always on time too. I don't know if you got a calendar event or what, but you're like Johnny on the spot. There was a couple other hands that went up. We got Simon.
Hey, Michael, can you hear me? It's Simone.
Yes, Simone.
I just had a question for commissions being paid and where they were at. Being in the Australian area, we don't have very many people on our team that's subscriptions because we can't obviously get subscriptions. So I was just wanting to see where that was at because we hadn't had any commissions paid since sort of June, and then the monthly drop as well that we normally see in our back office hasn't been paid since May.
It has been an absolute, there was a point where we literally are just rebuilding systems after going through audits and trying to understand, but we appreciate the payment or the patience that you've got, but ultimately I wish there was this is on a specific date. We can say that folks that are in your ecosystem, so, 100% of what's been paid out doesn't have subscriptions in it. That's a lot easier, and we're basically chunking through some of those. So there's folks that are not in the same situation that you're in, but they've been able to get caught up, so to speak. And we're taking those one at a time. But ultimately, there's new tech and audits and systems that are being provisioned. The primary thing, and I'm actually glad that it happened when it did, we run on very tight. I'm going to pull up on kind of the margin and model that we have to operate on. At least the ClearUnited side of it, which is people telling people, that ties directly to, if we look at this model right here. So we were upside down. As a matter of fact, I could probably pull up, but this was the target of what we're supposed to be working towards. So the pools that you mentioned here, this combined 33% and 7 equals 40. And this assumes that the product is 40%. We can actually run the business, administration, operations, all of it on less than 20%. This is basically the whole revenue model. But what it actually ended up being when we started auditing it, or at least looking at it in May, was way over. So we had a massive, this is actually what the symptom was when we started reviewing it. And what we started seeing was people that had actually been paid out for folks that had come in, but they hadn't been paying. So it was actually double whammy, so to speak. So that's basically what we're trying to fix technically and from an accounting standpoint. And this is particular to the subscriptions that you mentioned, primarily based around the services that are tied to it. So this is voice, data, and text. So that's the basis of it. So we just appreciate your patience on getting to this point.
Do you know if what's outstanding to be owed will be rectified prior to Christmas, just so that I can rejig my budget if it's not going to be with, obviously expensive time of year with presents and whatnot to buy?
I would say there's a 35 to 40% chance of it. What I would recommend is ping. Wally, what's the best way to route questions like this? Is there a particular email address or a particular process to get?
Yeah, they can just go to support@clearunited.com and they'll be routed to the appropriate team.
Okay, so support@clearunited.com.
The issue that I'm in and a few of the people in my team is in that if we're promoting this opportunity, as you say, people sharing with people, it's hard for me with my integrity to share a business opportunity with somebody when we haven't been paid for 6 months. So
Totally
it's sort
agree
of
with you. Absolutely agree with you.
We're putting the brakes on in sharing it, especially as a business model when, I haven't been paid in such a long time. I don't want someone coming in and going gang ho and, and then they're not going to get paid.
Totally agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There will be, and that's another thing you got to kind of understand. We counted on people just like you to tell the story. We're technologists primarily. We're not marketing folks. But people just like you that say, if we take technology and market it and put it together, we can actually make a difference for what's going on out there. A lot of the things that are going on out there have taken such a front seat that we can't wait for the people telling people model. And so literally we're pivoting to a point where this has to go mass market very fast. So that's why enabling any Android phone to do things. But the Clear phones are always the fastest, easiest way to be able to get set up, if you want it. And it's not just the Clear phones, but the back-end infrastructure from, the nodes and other ecosystems. People can grab this technology, the software, and put it on any x86. As a matter of fact, where you're at in Australia, there's a lot of folks that already do this. And you can even do it on an Android device too. So you basically have two different ecosystems, a node and a phone, which really plugs into this model right here, right? It's the same model, but it's got to get to the masses. So for instance, how did we get 450,000 deployments with no sales or marketing people to the world in over 150 countries and 86 languages? Yeah, we did a deal with Hewlett Packard Enterprise to pre-install it. Yeah, there's certain things that we did, but really that particular type of thing is like less than 10% of the total world adoption. So my point is it's one thing to tell people about something. It's another thing for people to actually be like, we had a lot of abuse, integrous about what's being paid. Did they actually pay? And then people that were paid for people that didn't pay. So it's really trying to fix that, which is a spinning plate. That's the audit side of it's done. As a matter of fact, I'm sure we could even look up any of the folks you're talking about it yourself and see exactly what the dollars and cents are that need to be paid out. But the real question is, are there any clawbacks that are associated with it? And in your example, it's a really good isolated one where they could probably be resolved pretty quick. So I would do what Wally said, email that support at Clear Center or email support at ClearUnited.com and just see if it's something that can get resolved. Because this time of year, especially when you're budgeting and financing, and I don't know if, maybe I'll even do a test. I'll do a poll here real quick.
And I just wanted to say thank you, Michael. I'll shoot an email now and see if we can get some sort of an answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry that it's taken so long.
Oh, good.
All right. So this is a question, just a quick poll. I just sent it out to everybody. It's basically, what's your finance perspective? What are you seeing in your own personal world? Are things good, normal, out of 10? Are things neutral, 5? Or is it bad, like worse as you've seen it, so to speak? If you could just throw your thoughts out, just, next 10 seconds or so, just kind of put out, because I know we've got a lot of people with a lot of different perspectives that are out there in the world. So just kind of throw it out there. Personally, the things that we're seeing are people not doing what they say they're going to do exactly around this conversation. We're seeing merchant accounts get locked up. We're seeing banking be very it's different than it's ever been from a exposure standpoint, is probably the best way to put it. I wouldn't even say it's not that they're conservative or not conservative. It's really a regulation type thing. So what we're seeing as far as answers, good is 22%, neutral is 44%, bad is 33%. So thanks for your perspectives. Again, these polls are just on Clear One, which is here, I'll pull up a URL if any folks that are on the other channels want to actually jump on it. So it's rippleeffect.clear.events, where we basically go over a simple agenda for 60 minutes, new technology, and then general Q&A. We do it for 1 hour. We're just after 6:40, well, 6:40 right now. So we'll go ahead and take one more question, thought, feedback, comment, concern.
Michael, I'd love to ask a question.
Go ahead.
It's Beck here. Hey, so I just have a quick question around the creating a company in the digital world. Is it necessary to have the domain in Clear Center first before then creating the company?
No, you can think about it this way. If the jurisdiction for the digital world is the whole world, so what you're asking is, does this, by the way, this is a new feature from last week, so people can actually, and I'm not going to be able to log in here.
Okay, so the as long as it's a legitimate website, then you can create the company.
That's correct, yeah. And it can be with any of the top level providers. So, and I'm going to try and, this is registered.
But would it be better to create a Clear, like where you are now?
It
Like,
doesn't,
what's the best?
no, this only has a little bit more protection because ICANN ultimately says what DNS or domain name services can offer. So for instance, if I register, let's say, Assure Me as a website, I'm clicking .com, it's probably not going to be available. It's already been registered here. But let's say I want to register it as a different domain. So maybe pictures or maybe recipes. This will probably be available. So you can see it's available there. This is just like what happens with GoDaddy, Network Solutions, Google Domains. You're basically registered. So it says what address, I'll pull up another one. So this is actually a bunch of different domains. You can manage them just like you would with GoDaddy's and other. So let's just grab, let's grab this one right here. So you can basically manage where that's pointing. And the surety that this gives you is, let's say that you start doing something that in 2 years from now is frowned upon by the powers that be. This just gives you the surety that another layer of protection around stability. The existing web still works off of DNS, and DNS is managed by ICANN, and lawsuits can start a process. I've personally even lost domains off of it already. Now, they weren't domains that were tied into this ecosystem, but you just have to have, if you're building in the digital world, you want that level of protection. So I think I've answered your question, but let's go ahead and jump back over.
Thank you.
You were talking about, let's see if I had.
So Michael, can we use that now?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So if you got a Clear phone, you can literally log in. You can create a business, different kind of business, a community, association, a society, a trust, a benefit. You can create all of this. And if you already have a website that you've already got, you can use that. Now, remember, the jurisdiction for the digital world is the whole earth. But to be able to actually operate in this digital world, you've got to be a member of the digital world and then have some type of digital location that eventually will be able to triangulate, not just necessarily to a email address or a date of birth or a physical address, but it's deriving an authentication process from your derived keys, from your 12 words and your fingerprint. So it's building an online ecosystem. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So for those of you, you can create them. When you do, especially when you go and create an asset, it's actually going to ask you, it's going to ask you for, let's see if I can pull, let's see if I haven't issued one. That's been issued. When it actually drops the asset onto your phone into the ClearPay wallet, it requests that you use, every Clear Life or digital life will come with a certain amount of native. And so you'll be able to create a couple businesses or a couple assets, depending on how you do it, without even spending any money, so to speak. But that's basically how it operates today. Good question. Really good question. Other thoughts, comments, feedback?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Me again, Michael. Sorry about that. So I think I misunderstood a lot when I first got my Clear phone. So I took the Clear data package, but I'm in Canada, so unfortunately I can't port my number over. So I have to keep my number, because otherwise, if I have a U.S. number, then my people from Canada they'll incur long distance fees every time they call me. So is there an advantage to having Clear data as opposed to my current service provider? I don't want to be with my current service provider. I'd rather be with Clear data, but I'm that means I have to have two service providers. I have to pay.
The real benefit is just obfuscation. Voice, data, text, coverage, it's all going to ride on the same network on the providers that are local to you. Even if you have a US number and it's peered up there, it's still running on the same towers. Usually the speeds are all equivalent, and they have peering agreements and all that. So there's really no benefit other than the obfuscation. So if you've ported your number in, you can move that.
I can't port my number because it's a Canadian number.
Mm.
I have to use my SIM. I have to have both SIMs. Are you going to be in Canada at some point?
Yeah, we are. As a matter of fact, I've actually shown you slides that have some Canadian companies that are going to be core to some of this stuff. The agreements aren't signed, so I really shouldn't at this point. But if you were paying attention, you would see some of it. I just can't make certain statements, if that makes sense.
Okay, so go back so I can see. So can you give me a ballpark of when should I cancel my? Okay, here's.
I can tell you the conversations were as recent as yesterday, so it's really right in the middle of it.
Okay, so should I cancel my Clear data, or should I just keep going?
If you don't use it, yeah, cancel it. But if you're using it, then there's a benefit to it, especially when you start going in other parts of the world. There's a lot of benefits to it. Because really in Canada, you're... Say again?
You mean when I move to Costa Rica?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So I don't know what your time frame is on that, but yeah. So.
Well, spring. Okay, so thank you for answering that. I'll decide what I want to do.
You're welcome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and log out here. But hopefully this has been beneficial for you. We're going to wrap up. Today is November 29th. We got one more day of the month, and then one more month of the year, 2022. We're grateful for your time, for your attention. We're going to find a video today. Actually, we're going to go into the simple membership stuff, because I think we're going to watch this simple video right here.
Technology has changed our world, and the future our children will inherit. But with every convenience, we give up a bit of our privacy. The root of the problem is not technology itself, but rather centralized control of the technology we use every day.
Companies like to say, we collect data so that we can improve our service. And that's true. They collect data, and some of it is used to improve the service to you. But even more of it is analyzed to train what they call models, patterns of human behavior. So once I have big training models, I can see how people with these characteristics typically behave over time. And that allows me to fit your data right into that arc and to predict what you're likely to do, not only now, but soon and later.
What if we decentralized our digital lives? That means our data would be stored in several places, and everything we do, from managing our own healthcare, finances, even everyday activities like shopping and sharing, are under our control. That's what decentralized means, taking the control away from a few big companies and giving it back to the individual.
Our data should belong to us.
I'm a huge proponent that your data is your data. That's where I start from.
Companies conveniently, in the absence of any organized system to say otherwise, say that they own the data. They collect it because you use this app or this device or this platform.
People will start thinking, well, hang on a minute, what am I worth to you? And is that worth what you're giving me in return?
Decentralized systems allow the benefits of capitalism to reach into every corner. It's the difference between the abundance mindset of decentralization and the scarcity mindset of centralization.
We need the media and civil society organizations to sort of step in and insist that somebody start protecting our privacy and our data, because right now it's not happening.
Humanity fundamentally is a lot stronger than digital media, and will start to reassert itself over it, and will contextualize itself accordingly.
We are beginning a time of abundance. If we empower the citizenry with the proper tools, respect their privacy, and give them the choice to be part of the solution, fear will dissipate and opportunity will grow exponentially for all.
Thank you for all you do, everyone. We'll let you go.